The seasonal clock is speeding up. The change could kill off many species. Washington, the capital's famous cherry trees, are primed to burst out in a perfect pink peak about the end of this month. 30 years ago, the trees usually waited to bloom till around April 5th at the earliest. And sneezes are coming earlier than ever before. In Philadelphia on March 9th, allergist Dr. Donald DeVoren set up his monitor. Maple pollen was already heavy in the air. Less than 2 decades ago, that same pollen couldn't even be measured until late April. Pollen is bursting, critters are stirring, buds are swelling, and biologists and scientists are worried. The alarm clock that all the plants and animals are listening to is running way too fast, said Stanford University biologist Terry Root. Blame global warming or climate change. The fingerprints of man-made climate change are evident in seasonal timing changes for thousands and thousands of species on Earth, according to dozens of studies and last year's authoritative report by the Nobel Prize-winning international climate scientists. More than 30 scientists said global warming is now affecting plants and animals at springtime across the country in nearly every single state. What's happening is so noticeable that scientists can now track it from space. Satellites measuring when land turns green found that spring green-up is arriving 8 hours earlier every year on average since 1982 north of the Mason-Dixon line. In much of Florida and southern Texas and Louisiana, the satellites show spring coming a tad later. And in a bizarre twist, in a complicated way, global warming can explain that too, the scientists say. Biological timing is called phenology. Biological spring, which this year begins at 11:48 p.m. Mountain Time, Wednesday, is based on the tilt of the Earth as it circles the Sun. The federal government and some university scientists are so alarmed by the changes that last fall they created a national phenology network at the U.S. Geological Survey to monitor these changes. The idea, said biologist and network director Jake Wilson, is to better understand the changes and, more importantly, what do they mean? How does it affect humankind? This is what it means. Unless the Lord God Almighty does not come back soon, humankind will be looking at total extinction, period. There are winners, losers, and lots of unknowns when global warming, climate change messes with the natural balance and natural timing of the Earth. But the changes could push many species to extinction very, very soon. That's because everything is connected, and because certain plants and animals are dependent on each other for food and shelter. If the plants bloom or bear fruit before animals return or surface from hibernation, the critters could quite easily starve to death. Well, take the bees, for instance. They have colony collapse disorder. The bees are environmental sensors of the Earth. And yes, they are going away. Take the bats. up in New York State, up along the northeast coast. They're going extinct because they're coming into hibernate too early in the fall. Or they're just not getting enough to eat, and they die during their hibernation. Or take the salmon. There's no more salmon, or very few, going back up the Sacramento River. Take the monarch butterflies. There are many, many examples. Anyway, these are more signs of the end times, and there are many. Here's another one. Spring shows up early in the west. Salmon and butterflies, lilacs and honeysuckle, marmots and robins, all of them are showing up earlier in the American West